Okay, so I am getting ready to attach this to the cover here. So basically you assemble your frames and your accordion, and then you should be building your case, kind of in the same way you've done for your buttonhole book, where you're measuring the spine. The spine of this, if you're making, you know, doors, or it's supposed to be contained, this is the spine, right? And so that's where I've measured this space right here. When it's attached, it should compress. Now, I did revise this, and so that was built, so I'm kind of doing a redo, which is not what you're doing. So again, make sure that you are making your panels and your accordions first, and then make your cover to size. All kinds of things can change from the onset of an idea, and even with the best intentions, you could really kind of mess things up if you make the cover first. Okay, so I've glued this panel and this panel. I chose not to add the other panel on there because I liked its proximity to the back. If I added, I clipped a couple more peaks and valleys on, and when I did that, it stood a little bit too far away from the back panel there, and I like how close it is. When you're placing your text block, which is your frames and your accordion, you know, make sure that you've got enough glue on there so that you can kind of move things as they begin to set in place. And then go ahead underneath here and hit it with your bone folder so that it stays on. And you can do everything, you know, you need to, for your case, you need to have this part turned up. On your case, you do not add 3 millimeters to the top or the bottom. If you do, it won't stand very well. And so you want to make sure that it's got enough room to stand. Not room, but it'll kind of teeter back and forth if it has that extra 3 millimeters of space. So you want to have that whole thing covered, have your hinges reinforced. You can wait to do the paste downs until after you've set your text block in there, but you should really do everything else up until that point. So I had one side that was still waiting to be attached. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And then I can do my paste downs. Okay, so I'm ready to select my paste downs. I don't have anything in particular. I have my encyclopedia here. I have no idea if this has ceramics or not. Probably not. I'm just gonna pull a couple of random pages. I think that one's pretty cool. You know, it's interesting. That's a great one. Because ceramics has all kinds of technological techniques that go into making a piece. So I'm going to kind of cheat a little bit. You know, I found the edge here. So instead of measuring, I'm going to just measure down from this edge because I approximated my other 3 millimeters. One, two, three. And 1, 2, 3. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Okay. So I could use my scalpel. I'm a big fan of tearing. I think you guys all know that by this point. So I'm going to take this and fold it back and forth a couple of times, use my bone folder, and tear this top edge off. And so that should kind of sit squarely with an equal amount of space on each foredge here. Foredge and the tail end's fine. I'm going to do the same thing to mark out, you know, how wide it needs to be. Anytime that you can use the object that you're creating to measure materials for it in a physical sense, if that makes more sense for you, then you absolutely should do it. It might save time for you. If, however, you're really one that likes to measure things out, by all means, do it that way. Okay, and this is an instance where we glue straight onto the board, not onto the paper. When you're doing paste downs, you want to start from the center, work your way out. Use a decent amount of glue, but not overboard. And I don't go quite to 3 millimeters off the edge here. I'm a little bit shy. Oops. This edge is a little heavy up there, so I'm going to take away some of that glue. And I'm going to go ahead and tack it down, line it up. So when you have enough glue, you can really kind of pull this right into shape where you want it to be before you go ahead and really tack it down. Oops, I got a bunch of glue that leaked out on the top up there. I knew it was kind of heavy, kind of thick. Okay, and this is where I'm going to add on this bit, like I was telling you. Just a detail, nothing really terribly meaningful, but I do like to draw on my pieces, or paint onto my pieces, and they can get kind of, those designs can get kind of messed up. I'm also going to use this as additional reinforcement for my spine here. Not necessary, but why not if I have the opportunity to. Again, using the 3-dimensional form to make measurements rather than trying to measure it out. That's how I work best. And so I'm able to make sure that I have a square edge by lining up the straight side. Here I'm going to glue the paper rather than try to guess this really random shape. And again, this is where masking paper is almost critical. I do have to put my fingers down on the glued surface just to be able to hold it so that it doesn't move all over the place and get glue all over the place. But that's why you have that nice rag right next to you at all times. Okay, so now I'm going to seat this in here. Make sure that I'm kind of level with my edges of the paste down. Because I'm using it to reinforce the spine, I do need to make that hinge as flexible as possible, and I do that by kind of finding where that edge is, and then okay, and now we're starting to get somewhere as far as I'm concerned. I don't love how white this is. I might try to distress that or call less attention to how bright this is. I don't know how. This is an afterthought for me. You're gonna have afterthoughts, and it's really just how do you deal with that? What kind of opportunities do you have? What kind of materials do you have at your disposal to utilize those spaces? Gluing onto a already folded, already assembled accordion fold is very challenging. So if there's any way to just utilize the existing surface and figure out how to manipulate it, if that's the area of concern, paint can work perfectly fine. These are simply, paint droplets that I folded over, kind of did the Rorschach thing, and then I outlined them. So I might do something like that on this edge. Conveniently, that kind of goes with this. That was completely a fluke, but it works out nicely. And so then obviously I would do the same thing for this side. And hopefully my book will still shut. It is a little thicker than it was before. And so I'd probably want to press it. It's a little tight, and it's hard to make the frames not buckle. We're human beings, we're not machines, and despite our best efforts to get it totally flat, it can be really challenging to do that. I'm not saying that you shouldn't do your best to make that a nice straight and unwavy, not as wavy line, but when it's compressed, it really kind of accentuates any inconsistencies from gluing it down. So don't be too upset by that. Okay, and that is how you assemble your tunnel book.